So yun, we started out in a in a house lang talaga, my dad's house. We used it. Tapos we hired some people. Pero we were working on the same platform, which is Series 40, Series 60. So here we were still making games that we wanted. So one learning there is everyone starting out to make a game wants to make a Filipino game. If you see mga games na simula pa lang, parang game about Lapu-Lapu, game about Magellan. So that's, I think, normal lang yun kasi that's what, medyo patriotic tayo, we want to make games for, na makikilala ng mga tao. Pero one thing to consider natin is yung market niya magiging limited pag ganun yung ginawa niya. Okay lang naman siya, pero you have to be prepared for that. So yun. So when we started Indie Mobile, that was my first company. So one learning there is business is hard. Sabi nga, if you're a developer, you're not really a businessman, you're not really an entrepreneur. So kailangan mo isip ng SEC, you have to hire HR, you have to hire an admin, accountant. So maraming parts na hindi mo natutunan, you have to learn as you go along. Another learning is the mobile market was competitive. So as I said, low rev share na. And one thing na very challenging for developers during that time was fragmented yung handsets. So that's something that Android is facing right now. Pero dati, sobra talaga yung pagka-fragment ng mga platforms dati sa Java. Like there was specific platforms like Series 40, Series 60, kumbaga sa Nokia. Pero you still have to make a game for each of the handsets. Hundreds of handsets yun. So we weren't able to really hit all of those phones while we were making our games. So yun. So obviously yung games namin na to, the first one is Anito Call of the Land. So it's Series 40. Parang Diablo yung idea. This one naman is Black Ops. So kami na una sa Black Ops kaysa versus Call of Duty. Di ba may Call of Duty Black Ops? Sa amin galing. Pero yun, Black Ops. It's like if you played a very old game called XCOM. Yun yung idea niya. Turn-based strategy game. So yun. So we made those games pero they didn't sell very well. So one learning there is your model doesn't succeed. You have to pivot your company. So we realized that we're not making money from these games. So the next step we did was we went to outsourcing naman. So initially we didn't sell our games, pero at least yung games na ginawa namin parang portfolio na, and it allowed us to build our skills to make games. So when we pivoted, we started making games for like other companies like Celifun is one of those companies. So they wanted people to make free-to-play games. They just put an ad layer on it. So as people play, nagbabayad. So ad-based na siya mga few years ago. 5 years ago. Tapos yun, we were making games for mga ad agencies din. Tsaka yung parang talagang people who make games for big properties. We made games for Cristiano Ronaldo, for Snakes on a Plane. And some other, yung Jumble Madness or Star Cards, there's big properties in other countries. So yun, so we made good money there by working as outsourced for other companies. We learned a lot as well. So one thing we learned is console development is expensive. So I mentioned kanina dun sa game dev story, if you're gonna develop for DS, you have to buy yung license to develop. You have to buy yung mga units pa, yung SDKs. Tapos lahat yun, kayo magbabayad. Tapos actually hindi pa sa inyo yung mga machines na yun eh. Parang if you're finished, ibabalik niyo pa sa kanila. So mahal talaga yung console development. Another is know your strength, so don't overstretch yourself. So we realized that hindi namin strength yung mag-port sa maraming handsets. So what we did was we focused on several handsets, and yung porting is nilipat lang namin sa ibang tao. Like there are companies in India who really do the porting themselves. They have a lot of handsets. So yung partners namin will just give our main game, tapos papadala din sa India. Build expertise in new technologies. So yung nagkaroon kami ng DS license, we were the first Filipino company to ever have that license. So we had an advantage. Not other people can make DS games, so we captured that market. So if you build expertise in new technologies, it'll be a big bonus to your company. And And one last learning is you need the right partners if you're starting up a business. Unang-una, when we were making games for ourselves, we didn't know how to market it, we didn't know how to monetize it. Pero when we brought some people in, we had an agent called Fox Studios who really looked for contracts for us. So we got those contacts to those companies. So it's not only external but internal. When we started the company, there were several partners with us, pero not a lot of things meshed. So eventually, Anino Mobile was merged into Anino Games. That's the partners already moved on. So I was one part of the partners who moved on. Okay, so interludes. After I made games for Anino, I stopped making games for a year. Pero actually hindi pala, I was making games pa rin. Pero I joined G2IX as a practice director for multimedia. So we were making UI, we were making games for ad agencies. One of the things we made was this one. It's an online collaborative translation, so layo na sa games. Tapos we were making English learning for iPhone. So ito naman, ito mas game like it's parang touch football, parang i-juggle mo yung game using yung tao mo dun sa iPhone. So those were dark days when I left. I enjoyed a lot when I was there in G2NX. And pero one thing I learned is if you have game development skills, it's not limited to the game development industry. It crosses over to a lot of other industries as well. Like, kunwari, if you're good at making UI, if you know how to mock something up, if you know how people will behave when they see a screen, that's something na magagamit nyo in other industries din. So yeah, so I stopped making games for a year. Pahinga. Pero I knew that I wanted to make games pa rin. So, after a year, I moved to Gameloft when they started up a studio here. So in Gameloft, I joined as a lead producer. I wasn't programming anymore, I was more project management. Pero I was able to learn a lot of things, a lot of platforms, how you really make games. So this is really how you make games at Gameloft. Because before, it's just our processes, it's what we know. But this is something na established processes, established studios making games that we're working with. So these are some of the games I've worked on. This is Let's Golf for iPad, Let's Golf 2 for iPad, Ferrari GT for DSi, Dungeon Hunter 2 for DSi, ay for iPad. So pag tinignan nyo yung credits, andun ako. Tuwang-tuwa ako dun, screenshot ko po. Tapos Star Battalion for iPad. So very big games. Mostly yung ginawa dito sa Gameloft is merong itong Ferrari, it's an actual full built game. Parang it's using technologies from other studios, pero it was built from the ground up here. So medyo matagal yung ginawa. Pero a lot of the processes in Gameloft, mga porting din. So some of those are porting projects, like yung Dungeon Hunter, yung Let's Golf. So parang you're porting from iPhone to DSi. So dagdag ka na lang ng mga certain features using the touchscreen or using the stylus. So one other learning is strong QA and localization is essential. So I feel this is the strongest part of Gameloft. It's what makes their games really top quality. So walang lulusot na bugs doon sa game. Actually meron, may lumulusot. Pero sobrang konti yung lulusot. Sobrang konti lang talaga siya. Kunwari, if you don't have that strong QA, yung games na nalalabas isn't ganun kaganda. So very strong QA. May bugs pa rin, pero very strong. QA and localization. So yun, localization din it's really part of the process. So ang ginagawa din is bawat lahat ng text files nyo at hiwalay yun. Hindi kayo yung gagawa nun, papasa yun sa ibang tao. Sila yung gagawa ng mga translations, babalik sa inyo. So kung paglabas ng game, lahat ng markets sa tamaan ka. Another learning is iterate and iterate. So I think this is just a good way of saying na development never ends sa game. As long as the game isn't finished, as long as the game isn't good enough, gagawa lang ng gagawa yung mga tao. So iterate and iterate, keep track of progress din. So every few days, papakita mo yung version, kamusta ba yung version, kamusta yung version. So alam mo kung ano nangyari, alam mo kung may humihinto na, kung merong roadblock agad, alam mo. So, target your platform appropriately, but plan multi-platform releases. So I think this is one thing that can be improved from the game lock processes. Kasi usually, when we're porting to different platforms, parang ano na lang sila hindi siya naisip before. So merong mga challenges in porting. So sabi nga, if you're doing a game or doing an application, think of cross-platform kagad and how to plan for it. And lastly, execution is key. So does anyone here play Gameloft games or know the games of Gameloft? So if you know Gameloft games, they're mostly, they look alike a lot of other games. So kung wari itong yung Let's Go PSI, that's Everybody's Go for PSP, Gadget Hunter, that's Diablo, Star Battalion, Star Fox. So yung games ng Gameloft, may kamukha. Pero people buy them, even if meron silang katulad, kasi they're executed very well. So execution is key. So basta, if you have a good idea, as long as you can lead, or just an idea that's similar to others, as long as you can execute it very well, I think you'll be able to be successful. Okay, so now I'm with Inkstone Inc. So we incorporated last December. We're making games on Facebook using Flash and now on HTML5. So one learning we got there is games as a service for Facebook. So dati kagawa ka ng game, you shipped it, parang tapusin mo siya, ship it, tapos yun na, tapos na. Kaya kailangan doon, dapat wala talagang bugs paglabas. Pero the development process has changed. If you're making games for Facebook, ngayon you can make a game hindi pa complete, tapos labas mo siya sa Facebook, palaro mo sa tao, get feedback, improve it with user feedback, tapos you monetize it differently to microtransactions. So one big learning here is the industry has changed. This has changed a lot since we were making games for the Java phones. Ngayon, there are different routes to monetization, there are different platforms, different technologies. So, yun, actually next slide. I can show you videos lang pala of World Racers on that. Pero yun, so that's what I'm currently working on. What's next is kasing World Racers, it's a game similar to Amazing Race, yung idea. People join in teams of 2, tas they race in a tournament. So we just finished our first tournament. There weren't a lot of players, to be honest. So we're looking to get more players in. So we're starting World Racers Season 2. But and also we're working towards moving from Flash to HTML5 JavaScript. Kasi if you want to hit yung tablets, yung mobile, yung Flash, pwede siya, pero meron siyang limitations din eh. So we're trying to look further in the future by moving to HTML5. So yun. As I mentioned, yung market has changed. Now it's grown actually. Kasi dati yung games, mostly yung naglalaro ng mga gamers, naglalaro sila, they're called core gamers, naglalaro talaga sa consoles. Pero it's grown with the introduction of games on Facebook, saka mga casual games, it has grown. So nagbago siya, casual, free-to-play, digital distribution, virtual goods. Saka yung whales, does anyone here know the term whales? It's a demographic for free-to-play games. So I think this slide is very interesting because it shows the typical transactions that you'll see in a microtransaction game, like in-app purchases. You see that yung green, yung under $10, so mas mura. Tapos yung over $20 yung sa taas. So you'll see here that maraming transactions dun sa lower level. Pero yung revenue that you generate are actually from the higher part, from the bigger transactions. So yung learning dyan is yung people who spend a lot, they tend to spend more than the people who just spend a little dun sa game. Kaya yun. So there's this demographic na called whales sa isang microtransaction game. Sila yung mga people who really monetize your game. So pag inisip mo yun, dati pag gagawa ka ng game, lahat pare-pareho. Ngayon you have different markets to consider.